Welcome to Deming Chronicles Season 2. We bring you the ideas and opinions of persons who are not generally in the mainstream, but those ideas and opinions are important to the development of our country. On today's edition, we welcome Siana Teelucksingh.
Thank you for having me, Denise.
And our next guest will be Clint Williams.
Thank you for having me, Denise.
We'll be back with you shortly. Deming Chronicles Season 2. Welcome back, Deming Chronicles Season 2. And we have our guest who works at the Rocky Mountain Institute. Siana Teelucksingh, tell me, what a strange name. What do they do?
Well, Denise, the Rocky Mountain Institute, now known as RMI, has such a name because we're based in Colorado at the foothills of the Rocky Mountain. Now, RMI is a think and do tank, and it was founded in 1984 by Amory Lovin with the mission and vision to decarbonize in a market-driven way. What we do is we identify opportunities, define the solutions, and make sure the solutions are market-driven and they're aligned with the 1.5 degree C warming pathway.
Wow. And they're doing work in an island economy. Is that what is happening? That the work you're doing is in the islands?
The work I'm doing is in the island, but RMI more broadly work across multiple sectors in North America, Africa, Southeast Asia, India, and China, as well as the Caribbean islands, of course. And we work across multiple sectors: industry, building, transport, and of course, renewable energy. I work on the Caribbean Islands program.
And tell us about the Caribbean Islands program. What is it? What is the intention?
Good question. So when we think about islands, we think about beautiful beaches. We think about paradise. But Denise, what makes us beautiful also makes us vulnerable. In a time where climate on hurricanes are increasing in frequency and strength. So we need to be very cognizant as island nations that we are a vulnerable population. Now, islands, by their very nature, are isolated. And what happens with an isolated economy? First of all, let's take the example with Texas. Now, we are all aware that there was a pretty major disaster in February of this year where people did not have electricity when they needed it the most. Now, we don't consider Texas an island. Of course, it's connected to the United States, but it's an electrical island. And that is very important. In a time of need, in a time of crisis, they were not able to bring in electricity from their neighboring states. And when we think about that in an island context, in the Caribbean island, in a time of crisis, we cannot rely on our neighboring states because we are just not physically connected to them. So first of all, islands are independent, but second of all, island grids are very small and interconnected. When there's a fault in one part of the system, it can affect a large proportion of the population and the economic activity. So we need to be very thoughtful about how we embark upon our renewable energy strategy, because any mistake, any oversight, any missed design consideration can have knock-on effects. And lastly, islands are important because as island population, we have not contributed significantly to carbon emissions historically, yet we are on the forefront of climate change. So we need to take every effort that we can to preserve our livelihood in order to guarantee or to even try for a sustainable future.
You just said that we've not contributed in terms of our carbon emissions, but that is certainly not true of Trinidad. Trinidad, I think, has a tremendous contribution that it is made towards carbon emissions. And what does that do in terms of Trinidad being an island economy with such high carbon emissions?
Well, that has to be taken in context. In the larger scheme of things, we have been, I'm not going to go down the number path here, but I agree we have been historically driven economically by oil and gas. And while our drivers to embark upon the energy transition are different to our neighbors where I work in neighboring Caribbean island states. The energy transition rationale and motive is clear. We are not immune to the effects of climate change. In fact, we see those impacts already. So we need to be proactive and we need to embrace this challenge and we need to embrace the opportunity, level up the dialogue in order for us to make sure that our pathway to a clean, green future is equitable and sustainable.
When we think of the other islands, which island in the Caribbean would you say is furthest along the path towards renewable energies that is sustainable?
Well, that's a very complex question. And I think every island is unique. And we, especially myself, a consultant to the island and their energy program, I need to be cognizant that every island is unique geographically, culturally. Every island has their own resources that are unique to them and their own economic drivers, etc. So it's very difficult to compare one island to another. However, I would say in terms of being proactive and being thoughtful in the energy transition, there are quite a number of islands that we in Trinidad can observe and learn from, and we get ready for our energy transition. Jamaica, Barbados, they're all taking steps to embark upon the energy transition, and we're in a good place to observe and learn.
Where would you put Trinidad? I know you said that each island has its own, it's culturally different and so on. But in terms of renewable energy, where's Trinidad on that spectrum?
Well, Denise, I would say that Trinidad and Tobago is in a wonderful position to leapfrog. We comprise of very smart, hardworking, diligent, skilled people. And we all want a stable future. We all want a clean future, and we all want to thrive in the future. So I think the momentum is here. I think the desire is here for us to embark upon our renewable energy pathway. And I think the skills are here. We just need to make sure that we come together, we discuss the opportunities that we have available to us to transition in a very safe way. Because as I mentioned before, renewable energy is not something that you can haphazardly build into your network. You have to be very, very thoughtful about it, especially in an island economy. So it's a very diverse conversation. The more minds in the conversation, the better. And that is what we need to do as Trinidad and Tobago in order for us to ensure that we have the right decisions made at the right time.
What can the citizen do? Because the conversation seems to be very high level at the moment and very policy directed. Tell me, what can the ordinary man in the street do who's seeing the world transitioning? How can we impact it? What can we do?
Well, the first step is awareness. We're all human, and humans behave according to the incentives that are available to them, right? And we have to realize and appreciate that we in Trinidad and Tobago benefit from one of the lowest rates of electricity in the world. And as such, that low electricity tariff is actually a signal and it's an incentive at the end of the day. And what does that encourage us to do? It encourages us to be not mindful of how we use electricity. Not all of us turn off lights when we're leaving a room. Some folks have multiple air conditioning units in their homes, large, and with more and more screens and devices, our electricity consumption will increase, or it's on a trend to increase. And, I can't blame anyone for that. We all want to live a high quality of life, But there's a way to live a high quality of life without impacting our comfort. And that's by being energy cognizant and energy efficient. But it all comes down to the incentive. It's very difficult to put up that extra $1,000 or $2,000 to buy that energy efficient fridge. We can understand that. So once the incentives are aligned for us as citizens to use energy more efficiently in the first place, it will set the stage for us to not invest as much in renewable energy generation, right? It's part of the spectrum. And once we address each part of the spectrum in a structured approach, in a structured way, we can achieve a highly sustainable economy.
That's great news to hear, but what I'm hearing in that is higher energy costs. You don't have to comment on that. That's my interpretation.
I am not advocating for higher
But
energy
let me
costs.
ask you, I understand. I know that. I just wanted to say that's what I hear. That's not what you're saying. But I hear that for us
No,
to
I'm
really
not
go down the
saying
path
that.
of
I think that we as a nation should be appreciative of why the subsidy was installed in the first place, right? Because we as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago we should benefit from our natural resources. And the low electricity rate, and this goes back to the entire principle of electricity, it underpins the entire economy. And once you have a safe, reliable, and affordable supply of electricity, your economy can thrive. And that is why we benefit from a low electricity rate now. It was intentional and thoughtful for our livelihoods. But then we have to question, is this subsidy truly still acting in our best interest? Yeah, I leave you to form your own opinion on that one.
Yes. And when you look back on your career, or let's say at some point you ask yourself, okay, have I made a significant contribution? What would you like to see happen for you to feel satisfied about the contribution that you're making?
So when I travel the world, I meet people from Trinidad and Tobago all over. And then I ask, what got you here? What was your career journey like? And it's typically oil and gas expertise. And what that signals to me is that we have very brilliant people here in Trinidad who have developed skills that are valuable worldwide. And what I would like to see is we take this opportunity to develop skills in renewable energy so that we are marketable on the worldwide stage. And I think that a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, that is what I would love to see. I would love to see us take control of our future, develop the skills that we need for the energy transition, and then when Trinidad is in a good place, we could market our skills to the rest of the world.
Thank you very much, Siana. And do you have any parting comments that you wish for my viewers to go with?
I would say thank you for having me, first of all, and I am excited to see Trinidad embark upon the renewable energy transition. It requires conversation, it requires hard work. It is not an easy journey at all, but nothing is worth it if it's not challenging, right? So I think we need to combine efforts. Everyone has different strengths, and we need to harness and appreciate that in order for the energy transition to be successful.
Thank you very much, Siana Teelucksingh, and a conversation about renewable energy and what is needed in Trinidad and Tobago. And she highlights that the fact that we have low electricity costs is something that we need to take advantage of and make the best use of. But the transitioning process needs to happen. And finally, she talks about how Trinidadians who work all over the globe contribute in terms of the oil and gas sector. And just as we've developed those competencies in the oil and gas sector, we can also develop those competencies in the renewable energy sector. Deming Chronicles. Thank you, Siana. We'll be back with you shortly. Deming Chronicles, welcome back. And on this segment, we have Clint Williams. Clint, tell me, what about Trinidad and Tobago brings you joy?
It doesn't sound like the most profound thing, but the thing that brings me most joy actually brings me the most frustration at the same time, which is it's the people. It really is the people. I've been lucky to live in a number of different societies around the world, and the astonishing creative power of us as a people. I mean, you throw random 10 Trinidadians and Trinbagonians into a room, and there's going to be somebody there who can tell the best story, somebody can sing. 8 out of 10 of them can beat a real good rhythm on a desk, a school desk, or with a geometry pan, and we're funny, and funny requires smart. You can't be smart and dumb and not be funny, and I see that, with our little old talk and whatnot, but so much of that is masked in, a slightly underdeveloped social context, I say to people that, a room full of teenagers with too much money is a lot of fun, but you're not going to get a lot of the grown-up work done, and I see Trinidad in that way often. A lot of really beautiful, high-spirited, too much money flying around, and just having a damn ball. I mean, we have a Peter Pan system here that lasts forever. I've had foreigners come down and they try to gauge the age of the people that they're meeting, and they're off by 15 years. It's like, oh, he's in his mid-40s. It's like, no, he's 63. The guy who's doing the dog at the back of the boat is 63,
Yeah.
So that's why the view is a beautiful thing.
So our people bring you joy. But tell me, this COVID pandemic that we've been struggling with, how has that impacted on your business?
And I'd say that your revenue stream is the only curve that seems to be flattening these days. COVID has been a real challenge. I mean, I'm in an industry, advertising. I'm in an industry that was seeing challenges prior to COVID. We've seen the edging away of budgets and the disruption of new media, which is a good disruption, but it's heavily misunderstood or not understood or dark magic. So it has chipped away at some of the more traditional means, the more measurable means and whatnot. But I'll tell you, COVID, working remotely for a creative writer is one thing, because there's peace and quiet, and you can sit in your jammies and sip a drink. But running a team remotely is a lot more challenging. I found that, and presenting creative to a potential client is absolute hell. There's no energy in the room. You have a screen with either no images on it and some voices, or you get one shot of a boardroom of people, so you're talking to little dots that are all looking at their phone and being distracted. Good creative requires feedback. I tell clients often, let's treat this also as a working session. If there's one word you just absolutely love, let's not fly past it. Let's say, wait, hold on, maybe that's the whole thing. You just don't get it on the screen.
How have you coped with the challenges of that screen, those little boxes, presenting to those little boxes? How have you been successful with that?
I would say, successful is such a powerful word. I'm not sure that I've been successful with it. I think that, we're evenly yoked. So, one must not, beat yourself up too much, or feel too sorry for yourself, more importantly. But I think it has cost the industry a significant amount of excitement. There's something that happens with an idea. It needs to have good parents, but it needs to have really good step parents and cousins and people who carry it a step further, so that, when it leaves your hands, it's running around like a little toddler inside of a corporate situation. And, somebody has to protect it if the CFO simply says, well, I don't see why we need a 60-second. Let's do 45. It's like somebody needs to run in and go, we need to launch with the 60. Trust me, And that is disconnected now. I think the ideas themselves, the ideas aren't any less exciting. just that the ideas just have less excitement around them. They become clinical. And our most successful business in our country, other than obviously some manufacturers and whatnot, we are retail. We buy and sell. Move it 10 feet, put 10% on it. And
there's a report that I saw recently that talked about the reduction of advertising spend in traditional media. What are your comments on that? And what are the implications of that for the future?
Well, globally, we have this pendulum swing we do. Something new comes along, we run chase it and we go crazy. And then we say, okay, newspapers aren't dead yet. Television did not kill radio. Online video has not killed television. So the understanding, the dark science aspect of being able to gauge, where a message needs to reside for it to be most effective. There are things TV, or let's just say video, audio, because wherever you host it, it's video and audio. It can do something that a print ad can't, but there's also times when, a print ad can just hold you and you sit and stare at it. I mean, one of my favorite pieces of advertising ever for my international was, I hope I can say words like J&B Scotch. They did a Christmas billboard and it just said, Ingle L's, the season isn't the same without J and B. And I was like, you know what, that's not obvious. But you could sit there and go, ooh, and you're not going to walk away and wonder which Scotch it was for, because the J&B is right in there, And that's a simple thing. But then I look at the response people still have to my 28-year-old Royal Castle jingle, and I mean, my kids' friends sing that in school, that's just, we're musical people. Yeah. So, of course, I'm not going to replace that feeling,
Yeah. How would you describe the ecosystem that the creative sector resides in Trinidad, and what is needed for creatives to really thrive?
Well, it'd be nice if they could make some money before they die.
What do you mean by that, Clint?
I'm a cynic. The difficulty for me, I look at our creative sector, because our creative sector is a broad thing. We're talking from pan man to jingle writer to whatever, speech writer. Coming back to our trader mentality, we understand tangibles. Very early in my career, I wrote a jingle for someone, and it was a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11. And when they saw the cost to do it, they said, you got to be out of your mind if you think I'm going to pay you this for one piece of paper, And because I was young enough and stupid enough, I kind of slid the dictionary down the table until it actually hit the guy in the chest a little bit. And I told him, the words for your next campaign are all in that book. If you can put them in the right order without me, don't pay me. Otherwise, understand that piece of paper, you are probably going to use that for at least 3 years in 10 markets to make a few $100 million worth of sales. And that's its value. Don't tell me that it's an 8.5 by 11 paper with some words. And that's our problem. Our problem is we are a tangible society. We sell, we all know that our bag of cement went from $45 to $100. So we vex, and we treat creative like that, If the painting is small, it had to be less money. I mean, you pay big money for a small painting, and that's just not feasible for the development of a sector. We don't have the value mechanism to understand it. We need to create the economic mechanism around it. And we need to stop thinking that creative, and this damages the people and the art, the creative is this thing that needs to be supported by a government subvention. Because anytime you keep coming back to only that as the only solution, then what you're saying is that it has no value. And it's something we kind of have to have in our lives because that makes us bouge or something. And that's entirely not true. I mean, without beauty, without art, without the power of creative to make you question even the same system that you're living in. Well, where are we? Where's our development? We're gonna be stuck in Maslow's first and second step all our lives. Food, shelter, food, shelter, food, shelter. Bigger shelter, nicer food. So you're a billionaire living in a lovely shelter with the best food in the world, but you actually haven't progressed through, and there's no hope of you getting a self-actualization or any big esoteric thinking like that because you're still surviving.
Can you view in terms of how we move up the hierarchy of needs? Because you've just dissed everybody, yeah? So how are we moving up this hierarchy of needs?
Allow ourselves to recognize that we've bought into a BS construct of success through better food and realize that, okay, let me a little self-introspection. Art does that. There's a reason why in museums, I hate to say this, but in Europe, in museums, there's a bench in front of pieces. Sit there, shut up, fall into it a little bit, and do something quiet and thoughtful for a little bit. We're lovely people, but we have a habit of turning up the music real loud so we don't have to think or hear each other speak. What about fireside chats? What about sit at a cafe with the music actually off or very low and chat with your friends? You might be surprised to find out how bright, how intuitive, how deep their thinking is. But if every time you see them, there's a 2,000-watt speaker and a subwoofer next to your head, we're not going to advance. It's just sad, We lie, we have fun, we talk crap, and in between all of that, we do enlighten each other. But we're also bullies. So if you have a view that doesn't match the group, God help you,
Clint, let's, as we bring this interview to a wrap, think about 5 to 10 years out. And what are your wildest dreams for our country 5 to 10 years out? What would you like to see?
My wildest dreams can't happen in 5 to 10 years because that's just 2 cycles of a political back and forward where each pulls apart what the other one did. I would say, though, that my wildest dreams would be a revisiting of the Medici principle. Let's bring the great minds that we have here together. It's my if I win a US lotto and I have a couple dozen million to throw around, I would immediately put the best minds together from a bunch of different fields and let's address everything. Let's look at violence against women. Let's look at let's bring in Siana and let's do the renewable energy. Let's look at the creative sector. I believe that we have the minds, and I'm following on what Siana said, because she talked about the smart, skilled, diligent workers. We have all of that. Trinidadians are known for jokey playing and drinking, but you know what? We can drink till 4 o'clock in the morning and be at the office 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why. I don't know how. It may not be something we need to be proud of, but you know what? We are actually quite hardworking. We just need the context within which hard work is valued.
And on that note, valuing the context in which we work hard, Clint has taken us on a journey from talking about the how we like to lime, the things that bring him joy, talking about the creative sector, talking about advertising. All of these things are comprise the ecosystem to make our country better. Thank you very much, Deming Chronicles. Like and share our editions. Follow us on social media. Deming Chronicles. Thank you for viewing.